Oh, okay. There we go. Damn, that was strange. All right. So thank y'all for coming through. Been asked some specific questions. And it was hard to get through to this individual because they put, again, last night's stream was the planned continuation bias. Now, this person was asking me a particular question about a PhD that he's been working with. And he don't understand why this individual don't work towards training nonprofit skills and abilities for people. Because I'm like, that's not their job. Their job is to keep the problem going because they're at the top of the social strata, kind of where they are as PhD. All they do is intellectualize failure. That's the only thing they're doing because they understand the actual path of creation of destruction a hell of a lot better than other people do. This is why they're the best culture warriors, especially the intellectual kind, because they don't care about outcomes. Like they can have an entire conversation about a specific topic and subject, and yet they've taken no side on how to produce a specific outcome. Because PhDs are not trained to actually go to outcomes unless you're like a researcher and you're trying to solve a very specific problem. Or maybe like a cultural anthropologist who knows everything about the creation of a very specific phenomenon, but yet have no answers on how to solve yet said specific phenomenon from beginning to end. So you have to realize you got to have a culture of work, a culture of skill attainment, a culture of that. And you got to have a level of people who understand the business process. So that way, the people who are not creating those type of outcomes, skill-based, are being taught how to, what's going on, David Bowman? Are being taught how to run things that are being created by said people. So if you're not worried about skill attainment and you're not worried about creating a business class to harness the power of the skill attainment, there is nothing that's going to be kept by those people. We should have learned this example, because this isn't a black or white thing, by the way. We should have learned this example from actual slavery about how not having access to the court systems or level of equal protection under the law, people could just come in and steal your invention and patent it themselves and make a whole bunch of money off of your idea. You see, the PhDs are doing the same thing, but they're doing it in reverse. They understand the track record from beginning to end, but they haven't created the bridge to get away from those problems. This is why I'm sick and tired of people sending me shit from DJ Academics like he's saying some woke ass shit. I'm like, look at this dude. How old is he? What does he dress like? He dressed like a person that somebody shouldn't take seriously. Which is why you don't see him around business people all that much. So it's like this. Strong message. They're not trying to create outcomes that's going to lose them their position. Because here's the thing. If they created better men that were focused on skill attainment, what kind of job would they have in 25 years? In 25 years, you would have eliminated the need for PhDs with skill attainment. This is why skill attainment was never something that was respected within the Black community itself. It's an easy way to tell. All you have to do is look at the outcome and the results of what they created and how did they get their position and where is this position going and what is their definition of success, and you make them commit to a timeline. Because anybody can sit around and talk about and deal with cultural issues. That's not really that hard at all. In fact, it's pretty easy. But not everybody can prove to you that they have a proven track record of results. Because, see, they only wanted group benefit out of individual action. They didn't want individual action for individual benefit. Because if an individual realized that if he take the most advantage of the most of the things that America has to offer very early, they're going to have a good result. Doesn't matter what your height is, doesn't matter how you look, doesn't matter your social disabilities, doesn't matter your physical disabilities. Stephen Hawking was studying black holes and shit far better than people who are actually walking around. So there is no limitations to anything. Not anymore, there isn't. Because they're here to make sure that you don't rise above the actual set circumstances here. They don't want you rising above that. This is why they have to keep you emotionally gaslit on issues that make absolutely no sense. That's the only way they can keep control of their own power within the environment here. And this is why failed men come online, by the way. This is why they're here. They're here to socialize failure. But there's a lot that goes into this specific type of concept. This is why the places where they show up at is pretty means tested and kind of centered around not being asked very specific type of questions about track record and overall result, about how they got their position, about what problem that they wanted to solve specifically. Because life is about solving problems. Life is not about being stuck in problems. So this is why when you have older black men, and they're always older because they're never younger, who mire themselves in the culture by staying stuck at a very young presenting self. They don't want to let you know that there is some end goal to not growing up. They want to let you know that you can stay your same self and focus on the same issues and problems, and that you don't have to move on to what is the next level. Because if you took individual action on one's own behalf, for one's own benefit, and you're not socialized into throwing it back into the pile to restart the same thing over again. If they can get you to buy into that and deal with the same individuals that's been cultured to not appreciate results that are not going to be given or divided among the group, that's what you're always going to run into. The people that are different are the actual PhDs that are in education. The PhDs in education actually go back to create better educational outcomes for the actual people itself. But you can't bring a better outcome to people better than the spousal choice of the mother. That's where educational PhDs never got. They chose the option that they chose so that way they can maintain control over the situation. They didn't make the choice based on moving everybody to a better place. They made the decision based on maintaining control over where they are. That's the issue. That's clearly what the issue is. So it doesn't matter who it is. All you have to do is ask them, what's your plan on investment for cryptocurrencies for like you? I thought this thing was turned off. Sorry, my bad. So it's like this. What is their plan on skill attainment? Because right now I'm about to get into the nonprofit game with the skills and abilities and bring that to people. These PhDs can easily put together a business plan to bring all sorts of education, as long as you frame it as a level of national security based on it, then you will have no problem getting buy-in on it from the actual government itself. But see, most of these PhDs ain't trying to do that. They want this blackified education that's going to keep you having them control over you. So that way you can be emotionally controlled by the bad circumstances that happened in the past, not your actual future without needing these people's help. This is why the actual most intelligent people were those who can interpret the Bible itself. They didn't want the lay person getting a hold of the information from the Bible. They wanted you to be spoon-fed the things that was in the Bible. So that way you would need to keep coming back to them for information that you can actually read, parse, and demonstrate yourself. It's the same thing. The PhDs are like the Christian church before the people had the Bible themselves. They want to be the arbiter of information. Oh, they say lots of words and they sound intelligent, but when it comes to actually competing with people, because anybody can have a conversation that leads anywhere. That's clear. But not everybody can produce a result. And producing a result has been so erased from the actual experience that it doesn't even matter now. Results no longer matter now. Everything is about image, style, no substance, hustling, not being real tangible. That's right, LOM. Now, if you're a doctor right now, that's an extraordinary waste of time, some people think. It's important, but all the ways that you can be able to get that type of money today is ridiculous. But this is what we are. And you have to understand that PhDs don't want that. Jailhouse scholars don't want that either. All this information, no track record, no outcome. But you care about the people. How do you care about the people, sir? I'm just trying to create a new paradigm where none of that stuff matters. It's all about what you produce, not who you give it away to. Because you could be educated and still not provide a good result. You could be uneducated and still not provide a good result itself. You have to realize that you've been socialized out of the power of information and actual long-term thinking on purpose. The purpose of this was to hand control of your future to people who emotionally made you feel good, rather than you create for self and give it to those that are worthy. Now you're being kind of in the marketplace of doing things a certain type of way. That's not going to net you a result in high numbers. So you have to understand, there's not going to be a high level of successful people in this system on purpose. This is why they wanted you tied to the image of Black rather than tied to the image of America itself. They didn't want that for you. They wanted you to be an entertainer, or something else that's easily controlled by somebody else's opinion. Not tangible outcomes that don't need people's opinion at all in order for it to be true. This is why they stay very close to cultural issues. This is why they find a nice niche and they just keep re-gaslighting you along those same type of things. Yeah, exactly what they are. It's kind of like how you see Candace Owens, and whenever you see her, she only talks about certain things, but she has no track record or actual thing to go to the actual results of anything. It's the same thing for the PhDs on the side on the left, too. It's exactly the same. And whenever you see them, they're going to act nearly the same way. How many of these people, you know who they are, especially here on YouTube, large followings, who's actually being helped? What's the actual track record? What are they trying to socialize into people to get them to move forward? What are they doing? Anybody can make money off of this woman. It's too easy at this point. It's too easy to see this stuff now. And it's going to keep playing out in front of you as long as you have access to more and better information. But see, that's not enough. Maybe you're trying to be celebrated by the wrong people, which is why you're socially retarding yourself, because you're afraid that your best self won't be celebrated by those people who you always want to respect from. And I say, good. You don't need those people respect anyway, because they're not moving to a better space and spot themselves. Most of these people came here for entertainment and for this to be the new hangout spot, because they can't really hang out around their cities no more or hang out in clubs anymore, because those are all closed down for the most part. That's the problem. You don't need a special guide. You don't need special information to deal with people who are not cultured for a specific result. There's nothing special about hanging around uncultured people. There's nothing special about it at all. But you've got to learn how to look at accomplishment and skill in a very different light than you used to. I'm just trying to give you a different perspective on these things that you see out here. So that way you don't get mired in the muck of some of these situations that happen that don't need to happen, by the way. They're going to keep running the same play on you all day, all night. Remember, most of these older individuals see what type of damage these people are providing in this space. But see, they don't want you to know that, because they're responsible for the outcome as well. And if they can have you intellectually behind a couple of generations just so that way they can die in peace, then that's what they're going to do. All are responsible. One group of people intellectualizes, sewing the actual beginning back into the end. So that way it's a time loop. So that way you never get out. And this is why most people took the actual pill of finding their own identity in a way that's never been tried, just so that way they can have control. But see, they wanted control without responsibility. That's the issue. So you go from control with no responsibility, and then you give access with no responsibility. That's what we have now. The access with no responsibility. This is why when we was talking about that book by Sharhat Ali, sorry, butchered the name. No, like, dude, you shouldn't be trying to understand somebody like that. No one else was trying to understand anybody like that. No other people had to try to understand traders like that. It's easy and even easier to try to sum up your actual worth in society is based on the simple fact of how well you sexually compromise yourself to the actual environment. But if sexual compromise is the actual standard of masculinity itself, then nobody is going to be a man at the end of the day. And all the people who are going to be the quote unquote new men of the actual environment itself are going to destroy the old level of masculinity to keep their spot. You really think that these people want to see graduating class of graduating class of graduating class of coders within Black America? You think they want to do that? Do you think that they want to take their kids' minds completely off of entertainment, rap music, and sports and place them on hard sciences? Do you really think that they want to see something like that? Do you think a PhD would work towards something like that? Do you think a guy who sells game, which is nothing but sexual compromise, want to see something like that? The whole point of them being in charge is so that way they can keep running the show into the ground and handing it off to other people who's going to stagnate the actual people itself. Not maximizing opportunity within an environment is not a race-based thing. It's a culture-based thing. But when you supplement cultural issues and superimpose it on racial issues, you actually destroy the critical thinking process and the thought process around things. You really think you can walk around with this compromised train of thought and it don't cause you long-term complications when it comes to you having complex access to mathematical equations or hard sciences? You're wrong. You can't reason with a closed mind, especially one that has been socialized to be closed, especially one that is taught to be limited, especially one that is taught to not maximize their outcomes. This is why the main people who care or think they care about people, why you think they care about the wrong type of people? Because they still want to be relevant in the new world. The only thing they got to do is just help the wrong people. Because helping the wrong people will mean that they don't need that much help at all if they got the professional actual help that they needed. Now their help is actually colored by the person who barely has any answers. So now they have a mental lock and tie to the person that they think is helping them out when they're actually not helping them at all. Everybody is supposed to be creating a world where the old stuff don't matter and the old stuff don't happen. But these people, they don't want that. They rather hang out. They rather have BS conversations. They rather do all these things. You think a PhD is going to work for that? You think a PhD is going to go and form a nonprofit to make all these kids better than them, knowing that these kids and their broken circumstances is their food? They feed off of broken soul. That's what they're here for. Yeah, that's what they're here for. This is why people can't let go of the culture war. Because the culture war is the best way of making it look like you care about progress when you clearly don't care about progress overall. And this is why most older black men can't be trusted, because they're silent behind the scenes, knowing all the stuff going on, never come out and say anything about it. Nothing. They say nothing about it because they're comfortable with the trajectory. And the trajectory is easy to see, sir. It's easy to see that there's not going to be better things going on. What's going on, black man? And so this is why cultural issues is what most PhDs will be around. Most of them. Because cultural things is what's going to keep them tied to their actual overall level and purpose over the environment itself. But if you don't get to the root cause of the family creation issue, which is this counterpart within society that everybody is trying to understand for some reason, if you can simply just move on from that and create better things out of better ingredients, you can have a better outcome. But see, most of these PhDs want you to deal with this specific type of person in society and bringing them along for the ride, because they know this person is going to be an artificial leveling valve that's not going to allow you to raise above a certain point. You want better outcomes? You got to have better inputs. You got to have better ingredients. None of these PhDs teach that. They only teach you about understanding a person that you can easily walk away from. And this is why, for the most part, there's no track record to the outcomes. This is why jailhouse scholars and culture warriors get all the attention here, not the actual people who are actually making it outside of entertainment and culture warring and sports. Why would they connect people deliberately to outcomes that they're not going to run? And an easy way to tell is, what are the ingredients of success and how do you get there? Once you start asking basic questions like that, because these are not complicated questions, they're incredibly basic. I would argue that the black and the white manosphere gave this woman in society an enormous amount of power. I would make that argument at this point. Because the woman's opinion and control did not get any less with the manosphere. They got more control with the manosphere. Because people wanted to be, once they got the information that they wanted to go right back into the system and try to climb up the hill again. They didn't want to leave this stuff alone. So now you got abject, unproductive people walking around thinking that they got game, thinking that they got answers, thinking that they got results, when the only thing they're doing is faking normal. They're facing the consequences of this woman every single day that they breathe on the planet. Every time that they produce a paycheck, they feel the consequences of this woman. But they want to teach you how to navigate this actual system. That's the problem here. Because education is about process to a specific result. And if you're not heading toward a specific result, then it calls into question what the entire process is about. This stuff isn't going to work the way it's currently going. And you can't depend on PhDs to hand you down a better system. Because even though the education-based ones are by far a group better than the others, but we still have the same underlying issue. Oh, yeah, of course they are, Mike. Of course they are. Of course they are. This is why they present compromised information with no real track record to actual results itself. So if they actually cared about the people other than the culture war. Hold on a second.
Oh yeah.
Wait a minute.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, we're gonna get into it. And it's exactly what you said.
Oh. I don't know where that came from. I thought that was muted. But yeah, but this is where we at, folks. If you're acting like an entertainer, then that's where you're going to be at the end of the day. If the way you act is Corey Holcomb, Cat Williams, Tracy Morgan, or Patrice O'Neal, you're not going to be able to compete in today's society. You're not going to be able to compete. And these things are not hard. It's just that you're trying to do it with the wrong ingredients. If you want the right type of outcomes, you're going to have to travel to those environments to actually look at them. How can you know what outcome you want if you haven't been to better environments to actually see the best outcomes? You have to understand that learning about things that was done in the past against you shouldn't really entrap you to the same type of people. It should move you way past those people. You don't see Latin PhDs anywhere near top of the social strata in their society and environment because the productivity runs the day. You got to move past all this stuff if you want it all to change. I go to the Native American environment. Those people teach. They don't do anything else. The way you get the best outcome is figuring out what's the most thing that's actually concentrated on here. And if the counterpart is the thing that's most concentrated on, and you can't leave that stuff alone, if you can't stop talking about that, and if you keep trying to coach through that, then you're never going to make it, sir. You're never going to make it. Skill attainment and not giving it to people who don't give a shit about you is the best way to go. Because you can learn as much as you want to about an uncultured woman and the type of pain she inflicts on dudes within society. But you got to be one of the dumbest motherfuckers on the planet if you want to keep attempting to bring this person along with you when they haven't even been cultured for the actual result. You got to be able to move along, sir. And you got to be able to keep most of the stuff that you actually created. And you have to get around better people who are actually going somewhere. Because it's either these things are a problem or they are not a problem. It's either these things are being focused on or they are not being focused on. The only thing you have to do is look at the same type of individual and superimpose that individual to other environments. You don't see these people in other environments at the top of the social strata. You don't see them there for a reason, because their actual outcome is based on something tangible. If your outcomes is based on emotional respect and you know how that person wants their man, dumb and sexually compromised, unaccomplished and sexually compromised. So people are clearly not telling you to stay away from these things. And the only way that you can be successful here is by bringing those things along. How are you going to get there? Because we only have like a 1 kid per household kind of creation process that is successful. Other societies, it's 75% or more. You have to understand, most of these people that are here are based on decisions that was made between 2000 and 2005. The decisions that are made today by these people, you're going to see the results of those minimum 2040, at the maximum 2045. So you have to leave this stuff alone today. Because being in a black PhD's position for the most part is not going to help you compete in society. It's not going to help you be a business person. It's going to stop your critical thinking skills right in its tracks because you're too busy trying to please the counterpart in society. You know, the same ones that don't care about your outcomes and all that. The same ones that everybody's still stuck on for some reason. It's the business class that's going to save this specific thing. It's the skills and abilities that's going to save this specific thing. You know what's not going to save this specific thing? Entertainment and sports. That's not going to win the day. It's going to win it for some people, a very low percentage, but it's not going to be enough to actually compete. This is why, for the most part, most of the so-called smart individuals are not focused on skills and abilities. They're not. They're focused on staying ear and eye close to the culture itself. Because when people talk about this pro-black nonsense, what they're actually saying beneath that is we need to find a way for non-reform Pookie and unfeminine Keisha to be a part of any type of movement. You can't leave these people behind. That's what the conversation is centered around. The people who don't need help. They don't need our help. And until we create a culture to where you leave those people all the way alone, all the way, that's how it changes. That's how it changes. Better individual outcomes. And a PhD is not going to help you get there. Better individual outcomes. I'm talking about the grand majority of them. I know some of them do good work. I work around some of them. But then again, there's the vast majority who are nothing but culture warriors and culture maintainers. I know it's easy to be raised to be compromised. That's a very normal thing within this side of the house. Works kind of the same within white America too. This is why PhDs are not running their environment. They're not letting those people who go to school for, non-usable education running things. No, business class is running things over there. The lawyer class is running things over there. But that's where we are. That's where we are. And this is why, for the most part, they don't push the things that need to be pushed, because those things are going to sap them of their actual power. And within a generation, they're going to lose their particular spot. They are. You have to realize how not so hard this is. It's the practicality within your own personal life through compromise or trying to monkey branch from one thing or another that makes it hard. You don't have to bow down to these circumstances. Your job is not to reach the top of the social structure here, because the top of that structure is the bottom of everybody else's structure everywhere else. Again, if you're not telling them to stay away from Keisha, if you cannot take a side on unreformed Pookie, then you're fucking useless. Fucking useless. But everybody want to keep their opinion mighty mouth shut around those two things. The reason why? Those two particular individuals create the entire system that led to the top of them being at the social strata itself. And they are not going to criticize their meal ticket. And this is why I'm clearly telling you what to do now. So that way in the next 5 or 10 years, you can stop thinking like what they want your actual particular outcomes to be and to move on somewhere else without their opinion mattering. No one has retired from this system, man. I agree. And the moment you say that infantry skills, there comes somebody who hulks in and try to bring this person back into the actual situation itself. They don't want you to think logically. They don't want you to think through a cost-benefit analysis. They don't want you to do that. Because if you think through things in a cost-benefit analysis situation, you wouldn't be wasting so much time trying to get people's respect, dude. And the people who are paying the most of the consequences are the people who's trying to teach other people to be as compromised as they are, to make sure you don't make it to the next level either. Yeah, it's time to replace them. I replace them. I don't have a problem. I still deal with them on a business basis whenever it makes sense. But bringing this stuff into my house and trying to socialize it, oh no. Oh no, that was the previous generation's responsibility. But you have to destroy this culture of non-productivity and talking about this woman until your eyes glaze over. That stuff has to go. You're not going to be, some people are going to, do that. Just like there's going to be a lot of people who play basketball and some people make it to the pros. That's kind of what this is. Talking about this woman until you make it into the quote pros. Talking about this person that you can easily stay away from. When you could be focusing all that energy on skills and abilities. Again, it's not a black-white thing. It's does this person make sense in every other type of environment, or do they just make sense in this environment? If you care about the future of black boys, don't put them in the hands of a goddamn Keisha. Where's that message at? But I never seen so many conservative men who makes a living talking about a liberal woman that they claim that they don't want. I've never seen that in any other society that I've ever been to. Never seen it. And there's so many people who think that they have this kind of money morality type thing, to where they can just make as much money that they want to. It doesn't matter about the outcomes in the actual environment itself. Yeah, it makes sense in your case, but what about everybody else's case? Are you supposed to worry about the flood before it rains or when the water's already in your house? It's a very, very easy way to tell where and when this stuff is a problem. And the easy way to tell is the associations. Yeah. You would think these so-called conservative men would just only deal with conservative women, right? If they exist. This is why the outcomes matter. But see, everybody wants to dodge the outcomes. They want to talk about having fun, but don't nobody want to talk about the outcomes, though. Most of this work that's created is about encapsulating the counterpart and bringing them along to a society that they were never cultured to respect, or bringing a destructive individual along in a society that he doesn't respect either. You can't bring consumption-based individuals to a productivity-based environment. You can't give a man who's been socialized to never being appreciated, have him practice a level of discipline and merely hand them off to a consumption-based counterpart with no degree of consequences for their actions and say that that's normal. That's an expectation that's going to lead to a specific result. Again, when you take a side, all this stuff becomes clear. The track record becomes clear. The path becomes clear when you take a side. But if you're trying to just exist in the middle and trying to find a way to get along with everybody, you will subvert the entire process. Again, they're not going to get rid of their paycheck. The paycheck is the broken people and continuously steering them into an actual result that they can't handle because they couldn't handle it either. This is why this stuff has to change if you actually want a good result. You got to be the first example. You got to be the first example. You got to be the scribe. You got to be the one who knows all the knowledge and information. You got to be the one. You got to be the one who goes to get it. A lot of these dudes don't thank feminism enough for the career fields that they have. A lot of people don't thank it at all. Again, I'm not even trying to take the system away because you need a foolproof method of actually seeing who's who. And it's no better than the situation that we have right now. It's very easy to see who's on their stuff and who isn't. If the opinion of the uncultured is too close, don't even bother teaming up with them. You're not going to compromise yourself to freedom, man. That's not how freedom works. You have to be dead set on choosing an actual path and sticking to it. Not looking for an opportunity to actually be compromised. Yeah, if they're not running things in other communities, they're not going to run things in your community, period. And you have to stop looking at a community from everybody being on the same page. You have to be on the same page yourself and find other people who are on the same page to where you're actually at. Don't keep kneeling down and bending down and waiting for other people. That's crazy. All right, so I've been here an hour. I got some other things to do this morning. So I want to thank y'all for coming through. And I'm telling you, your education had better lead to some tangible results. And if it led you to be talking about this cultural bullshit all the time, then I don't believe you. I don't believe your education. I don't give a shit what you majored in. I don't give a shit what your job is. What's your opinion on this fucking Keisha and this fucking unreformed dude? That's the question. If they stay, then you got to go with them. This stuff really isn't that difficult. But if you don't have a plan to leave this stuff behind, it remains being a part of you until you want to separate later on, which is never going to be able to happen, by the way. Because that's the longest way to get to the other side of the pond, where you can just go straight over the damn bridge. So I want to thank y'all for coming through, and y'all have a nice day.